The Harrisville Haunting is a paranormal documentary directed by Matt Benton and executive produced by Joe Vitale, released in 2022. It focuses on the Real Conjuring House and documents the events that occur when a group, including Matt and Joe, investigate the house's paranormal reputation. A compelling piece of physical evidence captured during their stay was the unexplained movement of this rocking chair.
I feel like I should do a tarot reading.
The rocking chair.
It's moving! It's moving!
Okay, jump around. Okay, yes, it was moving. It was fucking moving. I caught a little bit of it.
I got it.
I caught a little bit of it.
The boards don't go all the way through there.
Okay, back up, guys. Let's back up.
I gotta try.
Give us some space for a bit. We'll try and...
For years, this event has remained unexplained, and Joe has returned to the location several times in an attempt to understand what he experienced. Time out. I need to say this before we get any further into the video. I've only recently returned to watching paranormal content after a long hiatus. I'm not that aware of who the prominent and respected members of the community are, but Joe's name comes up quickly in any discussion that talks about investigators who debunk their own experiences. He wants to explain things, not to label everything as paranormal. I've watched him do this and he's good at it. I've quickly gained a lot of respect for Matt during the process of making this video as well. I've had nothing but positive experiences with him, which I'll go into further during the main video. As you watch the video, please remember that there may be a few criticisms of the investigation, but everyone is human and we all have our own thought processes. I'm hoping that the message you take away from the video is not one of negativity, but a celebration of working together to understand better. With that in mind, I invite you to come on a journey of discovery with me and figure out how that chair might have moved. It started with a hunch. What if the chair was slightly out of rotation and eventually, due to people moving in the room, it returned to where it should be? I began my search by looking for evidence of this. I took screenshots of the chair before and after the event. Due to the two pieces of footage having different zoom levels, I needed to make adjustments to line up the two screenshots. But perhaps I had something. The chair appeared to be rotated further back than it should have been before the event. Let's break it down a little further, as this can be hard to imagine in your head. This is the rocking chair at rest. Without any outside force, this is the position the chair will return to when it stops moving. This dashed line represents the offset that the chair is from its resting position. If the chair isn't moving, that offset should be 0. Before the rocking chair event happens, this is how it looks. It's rotated backwards from the point where it should rest. It should rotate forward until it gets back to its resting position due to gravity. That begs the question, what is preventing it from doing so? Before trying to answer that question, I knew there was another step I needed to take. I remembered Matt had offered to share raw footage if anyone wanted it.
We have nothing to hide. Watch the whole editing process. If you want to see the actual raw footage, just ask me and I can send you the raw footage.
I took him up on that offer and requested all the footage he had from the static camera in that room. And after a few hours, he delivered, sharing a Google Drive link with anyone who wanted to check the footage around that event from the camera. This footage took away any doubt around my shoddy Photoshop skills, and I could take a before and after screenshot that lined up perfectly by default. And still, I saw a difference in the chair's rotation. I started exploring theories that could account for this change, each based on the evidence shown in the video. If a rocking chair has a natural resting rotation, what might prevent the chair from returning to it? 1. A small stone may have become lodged under the chair's rocker. 2. The rocking chair may have more than one position it could rest in, potentially due to a defect in its rocker. 3. The end of the rocker might have become stuck on something. All three of these felt like reasonable explanations, so I began looking for additional evidence to support them. But first, I needed to know whether Matt and the team had performed any additional debunking beyond that shown in the documentary. They had stomped near the chair and had opened and closed some doors to see whether changes in pressure or vacuum might move it. But what else? I understand that in making a documentary, you can't include everything, and cuts must be made to maintain a reasonable running length. Still, I wanted to know what else happened in that room and whether it could debunk any of my theories. So, I watched the entire video surrounding the event and didn't see much beyond what was in the documentary. Bill rocks the chair back and forth a couple of times, but most of the footage is of people standing around waiting for the event to reoccur, supernaturally. This allowed me to continue exploring my theories in the knowledge that nobody had done any further debunks that night. I concentrated at first on the idea that a small rock or other debris might have been trapped under the rocker, stopping it from moving forward. I started scrubbing through the documentary for evidence. The wood floor did appear to have dirt or debris on it, but I also noticed something else. The chair's rocker consisted of stubby protrusions at the front, not much space for something to get under, and lengthier ones to the rear. The other thing I saw at this point was that the rear part of the rocker was much closer to the wall than I had previously noticed. Whether this was a trick of the light, perspective, or some other illusion, it became my priority to find as much footage of the rear of the rocker and its proximity to the wall as possible. I wanted to debunk this theory because it felt outlandish. How could nobody there on the day have noticed how close it was to the wall and offered this as a rational theory of how it might have moved? There are only a few seconds of footage that offer a good look at the chair, the rocker, and the wall at an angle that shows how close they might be. From watching the documentary, I knew that one of the team, Eric Connor, had been live streaming when the rocking chair moved. Perhaps his live stream contained additional footage of how the chair was positioned. After a quick search on YouTube, I found the video and queued up the start of the rocking chair event. The footage is dark and shaky, and I didn't notice a lot the first time through. What I did hear was this.
Is it like against the wall? It couldn't even
It is
rock
against the
far.
wall.
It couldn't even rock far, you know?
How much do you see rocker?
Bill says the chair is against the wall, and Eric agrees with this. And then they take it no further. Surely this is the eureka moment where the investigators figure out a normal explanation for what happened. Sadly not. They move on without discussing it further. Instead of finding a debunk to my theory, I found corroboration. This evidence all points toward a rational explanation. At some point, someone sat in that chair. As they got out of the chair, it was accidentally pushed back and the rear of the rocker caught against the wall, while the chair was slightly rotated back off its center of gravity. Friction between the rocking chair and the wall prevented it from returning to its normal position. Rotated in this position, it was only a matter of time and physics before the chair would break free. Vibrations from people walking nearby likely accelerated this process. Whilst I was satisfied that I'd found a likely explanation for the chair moving, I didn't want to just throw a video up on YouTube without asking Matt and Joe what their opinion was first. The transparency that they showed was the reason I was able to put together enough evidence to reach a conclusion after all. I typed up an email, stared at it for longer than might be healthy, and then held off for a couple of days. In that time, I would return to the email every few hours, check it over, rewrite a word or two, and then close it again. It's a problem I know I have, a mixture of procrastination and anxiety. When I did eventually send the email, it wasn't on purpose. I misclicked, and before I realized what had happened, the undo button had already gone away. There was a brief panic followed by relief. At least it was done. Matt replied promptly. It was short, positive, and politely told me I was mistaken. Joe replied a little while later, when I was still digesting Matt's email. Joe's response was lengthier, but highlighted the same problem with my logic. I realized at this point that the rough cut of the video I had sent to them did a poor job of explaining the exact situation I was trying to describe. I spent some time creating an extremely professional-looking scene in Blender to better explain it, and that did the trick. They could now understand what I was talking about. After a few emails back and forth over the space of 24 hours, we agreed that the rocker being caught on the wall was likely to be the cause of the chair moving. No drama, no anger, no negative comments. Just 3 people who wanted to better understand something, respectfully exchanging emails, even when we didn't immediately see eye to eye. When I set out to make this video, I knew that I wanted to reach out to Matt and Joe before I published it. I had the notion that this kind of analysis could be done without it feeling personal and without it feeling like an attack. I had no idea it would be this successful though, and I think that's in large part due to Matt and Joe being genuine in their search for the paranormal. They provided everything necessary for someone to help them understand how the chair moved. It never felt like they were opposed to someone doing it either. So thank you, Matt and Joe. I appreciate all the time you invested providing footage, answering my emails, and for making the documentary.